right. Anna, welcome to the Leaders Who Care series.
Thank you for having me.
I think you're going to prove the name right. I know you're going to prove the name right of the series for sure. You're going to lock it up, so to speak, for sure. It's great to see you. Best place to start, as always, is if you could briefly introduce yourself. Women are better at this than men. Men, I have to tell, I want to know about them and their family, where they're from originally, where they are now, stuff like that. And inevitably, they don't listen to me. They go right to what their title is or where they work.
Hmm.
That's not what I'm asking. I want to know where you're from originally, where you are now, type of thing. Maybe something you've never told anybody you want to reveal to the world now. That's always cool, if but not necessary. So please share.
So yes, hi, thank you again for having me. So I'm Anna Reger. I'm from Houston, Texas. I'm a native Houstonian, born and raised. Grew up in the poor income side of Houston, Texas. Very hard family life. My father was blind. I'm the oldest of six, and I became mainly the caregiver for my family as my parents were trying to figure out finances, and we never really did have enough, right? And one thing I shared, maybe not shared publicly, when I was a kid, you know how you get those little scholastic things where you can buy books and all this. When I would always get them, and I would always circle, like all these books that I really, or things that I wanted, and I never got them, right? We never could afford that. It was never an option. So that's what my life was like growing up, right? And so I always felt like, I should be doing more. I could do more. I could do something different. I just never felt like that was the life I was supposed to be living. And so at 14, I moved out, plus we had, back then, there was a lot of things that went on with families, where especially very disciplinarian, you get spanked, but it was a lot more than that in my case. And I felt, it was just time for me to go and figure my life out. And so I moved out and started, working with special needs kids and did that at 14 at a foster home where she had all foster children, and she paid me under the table, and I cleaned toilets, I changed diapers, I did whatever I had to do, but I absolutely loved it. And I dropped out of high school, didn't go to my highest level of education was eighth grade at that time. Fast forward, I went back to school, got a bachelor's of science from the University of Houston. I was going to be a nurse, and that didn't really work out. So took a minor in entrepreneurship and business, and oh my gosh, I loved it. In between there, my father passed away when I was in my 20s, right after I had a major car accident. And at 21, I was a passenger, and the designated driver really wasn't designated. And so I did not know that. And one of the people in the car passed away. They read my last rites. And in that it gave me this unique perspective of how valuable life is and how unimportant many things that people place importance on are, right? For example, I always say I looked to my left and I looked to my right and nobody was coming with me, right? I looked down and, well, they cut everything off of me, and I was pretty much my birthday suit. So that's probably the way I was going to go. And it gave me this idea and realization at 21 years old that none of that stuff is as important as who you were and what you've done in your life. And so it instilled this humility and humbleness that I already had, but I also think the humility came from, I couldn't walk for months. I was like basically in a wheelchair after the accident because my liver was lacerated. It was just a whole hard thing. And then knowing that I'm here and somebody was not was really difficult, right? Get into another accident, working double shifts because at that point I needed to make ends meet, and fell asleep at the wheel and crushed my face on the steering wheel. It was an older car because my other car got ruined. In that first wreck, my boyfriend that I was with actually went to jail. So I was having to pay all the bills. We were splitting them. He went to jail. So I had to do double shifts, and that's how I fell asleep. They called me to go in at midnight after I'd already worked a 12-hour shift. And I had been doing that for a while at that point, and that's when I fell asleep going. But I was always the reliable one. If they needed me for the kids, I was there no matter what time. And that's what happened with my second one. And so that's been just a quick overview of who I am and where I came from.
Yeah, it does put things in perspective, does it not? As to things that you think are I guess what people call, first world problems are hardly anything to and it's all relative because a baby crying, that could be the biggest problem in their life, or whatever. But still, they say there's a reason for everything. There's also a great book of Search, A Man's Search for Meaning, and it's tremendous. It's about finding meaning in literally everything type of thing, and it's well worth reading. Because everything can have meaning, and not next, and there's probably some kind of positive spin or meaning to everything that happens, and or it launches you into doing like you're doing right now. So, yeah, thanks for sharing all that. Did you have brothers, sisters?
Yeah, I have four sisters right now. I had two brothers. I have a set of twin sisters that I'm the oldest. So my brother he was 28. He passed away about probably, oh my God, 10 or 12 years ago. Uh, after my father passed, it really hit him hard. And then he was at 18, at the age where if you have schizophrenia, it was dormant, but if something traumatic happens, it can trigger it. And it absolutely triggered it in him. And, it was just something that he never got over. And it really just took over his mind. And he ended up, basically not, losing his life. He just couldn't take it. And so that was really hard for me, because I
Sure.
wanted to save everybody, But in that, to your point about, bad things, basically things happen to teach us these lessons. What I got out of the first accident was, I had left home at a young age, right? But I always look back and I go, I'm so grateful, even though it was terrible. I had no face. I was in this horrible, I couldn't walk. It was my boyfriend went to jail. It was like a whole life change for me. I moved back at home with my dad. My dad was blind, so he took care of me. But it gave me that time with my dad that my dad died like I think 2 years later. And if I wouldn't have done that, I would have never had all that time that I had with my father, He was
Yeah,
my best.
that's beautiful. We some second chances are great, and if you take them the right way, and forgiveness is great, as hard as it may be sometimes. But it actually works, because the person hating usually suffers the most than the person being hated, if you will, also. And so, good for you for getting that moment, because that's what you can remember and cherish, that time with him there. Did you when you got your degrees in strategic communications and advertising and at the University of Minnesota, which I love,
At
Minnesota.
University of Houston, I'm sorry.
Oh, Houston. Did I say Minnesota? Okay. Why did I think Minnesota? Okay,
I
sorry.
don't know. Sorry. Yeah.
What bottom line, what were you envisioning?
Well, I originally went to school, so I was a dropout, so I had to get the GED. Then I went to community college, and I was going to be a nurse because I wanted to take care of the special needs kids,
Right.
like I did, but I wanted to, have the certifications. And so I went into that, got the associates in science. Then I went on to the University of Houston. Now, mind you, I didn't know anything about college. Nobody in my family had graduated college or gone off to college. My mom went back to school later,
Hmm.
but I didn't have that roadmap. So I just went, and then I said, I'm gonna do bachelor's of science in the University of Houston. But then I realized I really didn't have a lot of time to be able to do the clinicals and the things that were necessary as we were talking about getting into the program, that I didn't feel like I could actually do because I actually worked and took care of myself. I had no other support but myself. So then I decided, I want to take an entrepreneurship class, and I took a business marketing class, and I was like, wow, I love this. This is really cool. Like I never thought about that, right? It wasn't even on my radar. And so I just went into interdisciplinary studies, got a Bachelor of Science, and then I get out and I start, helping people in their businesses, just kind of giving them ideas and coming in and cleaning up their books and doing things like that, bringing money in, and, I met my now husband, and he is a serial entrepreneur as well. And we started a business together. I started helping him a little bit, but then we started a business together, and we grew that business, really, really quick because we're both very driven. And it was just started this whole new world for me of who I wanted to be and where I wanted to go.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask you about that. We found that our firm on the premise or the foundation that leaders and their businesses can always do better when they're doing good at the same time. Share with us how you did evolve as that, as a mom, as a wife, as a business owner, partnering with your husband, which is fantastic that you're able to do that, in multiple ventures. How did that all evolve?
So
And how'd
yeah,
you
like
do it? Superwoman. I mean, come on.
that's funny because people have told me that, but I think now that I look back, it was a lot of me just really just going because of my life, because of how resilient I've been, because of all the things that I've been through. Nothing really scares me, right? So I always just go for it. And then I realize there's just questions, as my husband says, there's just questions and answers. There's not questions and problems. So for me, it was just going out there. Let's, we see a need, for something that we are lacking. For example, the bib company, we started originally with a window tint security film, or actually it was just window tint company. And we did really, really well, but it was, going through that business, hiring people and the kind of people that we needed to go do the installation. It was a lot of headaches, put it that
Yeah.
way. So we decided to can that one, got into real estate, did really, really well there. And that really was something my husband's excellent at. I came in and leased up a big giant building. We bought it at 5% occupancy, and it was a dump basically, but my husband likes to buy those. And then, everything he does is not something that I can do. I'm not a visionary in that sense to go see a building and think, oh, it's a cream puff. I see it and I'm like, oh my God, I don't want to touch it. Right. He sees it. He sees this hearts in his eyes, I always say, and then he's got the vision in his head. But I can go in like in that case and fill the building up. Once he fixed it, I 5% occupancy. I kicked two other people out, and then I raised all the rents, and we were the highest in the area. But I filled the building up in I think less than 18 months, 100% occupancy. And then shortly after, somebody came and needed to buy the building for a 1031. They had an exchange they had to do, so they made us an offer. We were like, okay, we're not married to this building. It's a business. And that was where I made my real first money, my real first,
I love
big.
I love it. I always say teams win championships, and it's supposed to be, complementing each other. You don't have five goalies on the ice or the field. You're not going to win that way. So you need complementary skills. Share a little bit about some of your other ventures before we get
Right,
into
right.
Flip
So,
Lok.
I had my first daughter when I was older, right? Because I didn't have any other kids. I had step kids previously and now. But when my daughter was born, I was like, oh my gosh, we need to, how am I going to tell this person not to kiss her and like, I don't want to be rude, like everybody, right? Everybody wants to kiss your child. So then we made Don't Kiss the Baby. It's a bib company. We still have it. I still have product. I just haven't been focused on it because she's 13 now, right? So it was started initially, if you think about the full circle, right? I started it originally to keep her safe, to keep our kids safe, and all kids, right? Parents don't think about this thing. And then, going into, of course, the real estate, and then buying and doing more real estate. Really, we're really good there. I could stay there and not move into anything else. But because it's like I said, he does something that I don't want to do. He does the build. People are like, you didn't pick the paint. I don't pick the pain. It's going to slow down the progress. We got to get it done, do it now, and I'll come in and make the numbers, right? So I think it's just about having that good synergy and being able to go into, a business. First of all, we trust each other. We're willing to put our money in it, but we also roll up our sleeves and we each do what we're best at, right? I'm a details contracts person. He's a visionary, make it happen. There's the beautiful building. Go figure out how to make the money.
So how many people would really wanted to kiss the baby to make you think of don't kiss the baby?
It was just something that I had read an article or something, when people kiss your baby, they can get, herpes, or they can get this, or they can get cold sores. And so I was like, that's really weird. I don't like that, worries me, because, if you have somebody caring for your child when you go back to work, and I didn't want to
Right.
go because it's natural. We all want to kiss babies. They're so cute, right? Even I'm guilty, or we want to touch them, you know what I mean? And so it's like, how can you do it in a nice, playful way where you're not just saying it, right? And then if you look fast forward, I mean, to what happened with COVID, it was like nobody wanted you to touch their child, right? Now you came in like, hey, baby, touch it.
So you,
Right?
you you didn't give your baby a wig to stop people from kissing, right?
Oh, yeah. So the wig business was actually my brother-in-law had started it. He went over to Japan and saw all the anime and the all the stuff that was going on over there and got really inspired. Came back, started a different version of Rockstar Wigs. So got the glitter wigs, different company. And he's just got this creative genius about him, right? But you have to continually, work. And so with that business, he was also a creative, my husband. And so we got together and we when we partnered all together, then we ended up in over 2,000 stores, which I negotiated those contracts with Party City, Adam and Eve, Cindy's, all over the world. We were in Australia, Mexico, all over Canada, big stores, Party Expert, like in Canada, Quebec, I mean, just everywhere, right? So that company gave me a lot of knowledge, as I move into this
Okay.
venture that I'm now. And so it was something that, after COVID, it just kind of didn't, you had to keep reinventing and creating. And then with the COVID, it was actually just not good. And everybody was doing everything online more and more. So, and the passion wasn't there. I think he lost the passion for creating all the time because you have to stay on trend, and it's a lot. I mean, we had like 1,600 SKUs at one point,
Wow. Yeah.
always changing and different. So it was just a lot. And I wasn't passionate about it, right? Intrinsically valuable to me is really what motivates me and gets me out of bed. Other than that, I'm not motivated. It's great money. I love money, but like I said, I don't want to be the richest person in the cemetery. I don't mind that, but what is the goal? What is the vision for your life, your quality of life? Because you never know what your news will be tomorrow, right? We
Yeah,
don't know.
100%. And you've got the life stories to prove that for sure. Before we get to, Flip Lok, which I love, talk a little bit about, our company was launched on International Women's Day 6 years ago because we were all about women leadership, women empowerment, et cetera, et cetera. And we still are. Describe your journey, as a woman. I mean, you've got an interesting journey anyway, but as a woman, negotiating contracts, maybe I've seen it a million times. You're in a meeting and you say something, then a guy says something and they hear the guy and they don't hear you.
Right.
All sorts of things. It's gotten a lot better, but it's still got a ways to go. Tell us how it felt for you.
Well, I actually went into a oil company. We were at the time we were doing websites. We were building websites and selling them. And so my husband couldn't go. He got sick. So it was just me and my web developer went together, and it was a board, like you said, all men. I was the only woman in the room. And this other company really wasn't prepared. Everything was done. This guy had but they weren't really listening. And so the guy had asked me a few questions. I didn't know exactly the answer, but I copied the owner and everybody in the company when I responded back, because he had asked me this question. I said, I'll get you those right when I leave here. So as soon as I left, I had all the answers, because we had a proprietary software. We had all this stuff, right? We had a whole coding company. And so after I sent the email, because the other guy his stuff was it was like, imagine this is what your website will look like. Imagine, that's exactly what it was. All his font and text was corpus luteum, right? All that filler
All
stuff.
right.
I had an actual working website. Like, it was like, this is what it does. We can do the back end. It was all done. And so my presentation, and so a couple of the guys were like, wow, this is really good. I was like, there's nothing to imagine. This is what it is. Now we can change pictures and but this is how it will flow and function, right? And these are the drop down. Everything was on point, but it was really, frustrating that I had to, this guy was just throwing technical questions, on the back end, just stuff that you would not in a normal not know, right? And so I got all those answers, and everybody that was in the room, including them, I copied them on my answers, and I responded to everybody in the room, and I got the contract.
I'm sure.
So
Well,
it's
yes,
difficult.
having talked to a lot of women, you had to try harder a lot of times and show more, but you did it. And they could have said no, but they couldn't have said no, I'm sure, after all that. It's brilliant, and fortunately it's changing quite a bit, but still got a little bit of ways to go.
I mean, it happens more than you think, but imagine, we'll go into the next company and we'll elaborate on that, going into that world, or even saying you're going to go into that world. I'm going to go into developing this particular product. And they're like, why? There's already, 100. It's like somebody saying, oh, there's already cars. Why are you making another one? Well, because there's Ford, there's Porsche, there's all these other car companies, right? So me, it's like, I never listen. So as a woman, you have to really, I think the most important thing for a woman in leadership or business, you have to be very confident in yourself. You have to really know your stuff, because like you said, you're going to get that one person that's going to try to heckle you or really just undermine you. So I always go in there and I look, who is the one? Oh, hi, nice to meet you. And I make that one right there is the one that thank you for asking me that question. I'm glad you asked. Now this is what we do. And then I always am prepared for them, because otherwise you get thrown off your game, right? And I think for women, there could be a lot of men that I not to generalize, but most men don't get intimidated, right, by this kind of stuff. Most men are very confident and strong, and sometimes women, and more than men, undervalue what they bring to the table
Yeah.
because it's something innately, oh, I'm not an expert, I don't know. So they have this whole fear around, am I good enough?
Well,
Right.
part of it is, sorry to interrupt, part of it is training and
Right.
society trained, what that to be, the girl has to be a nurse
Right.
or stay home or this or that, and don't be loud. And if you're too loud, you're angry. And if you're black, you're an angry black woman. That's even worse.
You're
And
a man Latina.
yeah, exactly. It's all the stuff, and whereas guys
Yep.
were trained to be there. So it took us a while, but we're getting there. I actually think women are the whole answer to peace. Myself also, um, maybe because of the nurturing, but I think it's also because of it's not mine's bigger than yours type of attitude. It's get it done type of attitude. So let's talk about flip talk. The fourth industrial revolution they say is about AI and technology and stuff. The fifth is about they're saying humanity. You've kind of put them together in a
Right.
way with it's exciting invention in this world of crisis and shootings and God knows what, all sorts of horrendous things. It seems you've got something that can really help people where they live, where they work, where they play, as we say. Tell us about Flip Lok.
Yeah. So originally like I said, mostly real estate in my office working one day, get that alert, no parent ever once. And honestly, I never thought about it. Number six child. And there was a lockdown in our area, and I just knew in that moment I had no clue what my youngest daughter was supposed to do. And so I was get home and I asked her, hey, what happened? What are you supposed to do? And she explained that she runs in the classroom with the teacher. She gets against the wall with her friends. Her teacher locks the door. Her teacher turns off the light. Honey, that's great. Can you lock the door? No. How do you know if the door's locked? She's like, I don't. My teacher does that. Okay. What do you do if your teacher is not with you? And I got deer in headlights and I was absolutely scared, and I could tell she was scared. And so then I started, maybe because I was expecting this protocol. If the teacher's not with you, where do you go to the next teacher? Something, but it
Right.
wasn't her. And so I started asking other kids and other places and not just her. And it was the same across the board. And then I have friends that are teachers that were like, Anna, the alert systems are different in the same district. Cause I was like in different districts. She said, no, I'm a substitute and they're different in the same district, different schools. I said, oh my gosh. So then I started doing my research and I realized that for my daughter at her age in elementary, there really wasn't a viable way for her to, first of all, feel safe in class and to be able to go into action. And that's why I created. And when Flip Lok came into my mind, and my husband, he's like I said, he's a creative. So I'm like, we really need something. What are we going to do? And he one day woke up, we were out of town looking at this other property we were going to invest in. And he said, I got it. We went to breakfast. He's not allowed to give me his 3 o'clock in the morning ideas, as write them down. I need sleep. I got to get sleep. So we went to breakfast at the hotel and he drew this thing on the paper. Like I said, I'm not visual. I said, he goes, it's the lock, the thing that we need. And I said, okay, well, send it to the office and have them put it on the 3D printer so that I can see it when I get there. And I can't understand what you're talking about, right? We're doing Morse code here. And so we get back and it's a 3D first version of Flip Lok. And then in that, I said, it's got to be red. It's got to be big. It's got to be where the kids don't have to find anything. They don't need to look, and all the things that went into it. Why does it say call 911 when it's flipped? Because I watched videos of kids recording the person on the other side of the door while they were under lockdown. Somebody's outside coming to hurt them, and some of them are recording this. To me, they need to be reminded, because we all know they're not fully developed and you're in a crisis situation. Fight or flight kicks in, and for kids, it's get your phone out. And I mean, that's not going to help them. So that's why I made it say call 911. And then in that, going to present to, mostly security people, which that's a whole different crowd as a woman getting up in front of, trying to
Absolutely.
talk about your solution and your safety, what you think, should be implemented. And that's a lot of pushback, because we already have a system. We already have this. We already have all these things, right? And so, I had to really, show them what our kids are experiencing. That's great. You have all these things, but if that one person that is supposed to lock the classroom is not there, or there's another thing called fight or flight, does not move because they're actually scared. They're not trained military.
Yeah.
They freeze. Now all of our children are in the back of a classroom dependent on this person. Can you imagine the level of stress that is on a teacher, on one person in a classroom to protect these kids? That's a lot of responsibility.
Yeah.
I'm not going to blame a teacher if they don't move. I mean, it's normal reaction, fight or flight. So how can we give everybody in the room the sense of empowerment? How can we take that pressure off of our teacher and keep our teachers, the good teachers, teaching rather than retiring or get into another field? We
Hmm.
need these people, right? So all these things were made, getting up in front of the places. The first lock I made did not have an unlocking mechanism. I get up there and that was my big no. No, 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 no. So I told we had to figure that out. So we had to make a key and unlocking mechanism. Mercy personnel, first responders. Key had to be a certain size because we wanted it to be able to fit where they needed it to fit in emergency places. And then, I get into Texas, I go into other states, I get into Texas, and my fire marshal says, oh no, you can't put that in school. It's not happening. It's an egress issue. So talk to them. We became friends. I said, can't we agree that desk against the door is also kind of a fire hazard? And that's really the only option my kid would have in this situation. And if the door pulls out, that's really not even viable. So it's just a joke. So we talked and she said, if you can make it meet code, make it a one motion egress, then I will basically write a letter approving that this can be put into Houston schools. And so she did. We took a year, more research, more investment, as you know, research development and all that. And we got the letters from them. We got letters all over the United States now for people to we meet codes. And I always recommend, because for me, this is not about selling a law. This is about saving lives. And
Right.
so I don't go into school and go, oh, you got to buy. No, listen, you need to talk to your fire department. You need to talk to the people that make the rules there. And you need to tell us which version of my lock you need so that we can actually put it into your school. Those are things that you learn, right? When I get up, so I get up in front of a room with 50 people, mostly police. I spoke at the DPS office here in Houston with mostly police, FBI people, all kinds of people came in, and I said, we're trying to work together, but you get up there and it's you're just Anna from Houston, Texas, and but they saw the value in what we created and they understood what I was trying to do. So I got some pushback, but really after I had all those things, all the requirements met, I've had a lot of people come back on board and say, Anna, that's really powerful what you delivered, what you showed. And we're really happy that you're working towards this and we really want to help you. So I have, people from the Secret Service, people from FBI, a lot of people have contacted me to talk about what my mission, what I'm doing and how we can try to work together to make some changes, which includes, the lock in the schools. Because to your point, doing things just to make money really doesn't motivate me. I'm not motivated. I'm motivated by making a change, making a difference, doing something for the greater good, which I believe we can save lives simply by giving everybody a way to lock the door in a classroom, in a building, in anywhere. And even step further, my bigger mission is really standardizing the active threat drill across the United States. It's no different than a fire, except a fire is a different type of threat.
Sure.
We need to have a way, a system. We've seen it with the Dallas, and then not only that, educating people. So I'm getting ready to I'm going to start a YouTube channel. Like the kids that were in Dallas at the convention cheer thing, and there was, they thought it was gunshots or whatever. My friends were there, and these are kids that I was there when she was born, right? And I was like, oh my gosh. But in that, it was like, oh my gosh, what's the plan? Have you talked to your kids about a plan? Who talks about our kids? We don't know. So I'm going to start educating people on what you should talk to your kids about in that situation, because it's easy. We always let our kids go in a buddy system to the restroom. But what do you do if that happens and you're not with them? Can you imagine?
Yeah, it seems so, and I say this respectfully, it seems so basic that we would do this type of stuff, especially considering all that's going on right now and everybody's so secure. And we talk a lot about people got to start thinking thinking in a way that it's personal. And when you start thinking about personal, then you start coming up with solutions rather than, well, first of all, it would never happen to me. It would never happen here. Oh, I heard only two people died. That's not bad. which is horrendous to, that happens when people get numb to it. And that way, I think they start taking things like Flip Lok more seriously. Because why would you not entertain the conversation at the minimum to see what's available? So, I mean, congrats. It's funny, this morning on our Leaders Who Care series, I had the retired assistant chief of police for the Dallas Police Force on, and he's doing stuff with police trauma from those events that have happened. So imagine the trauma that would be relieved by having something like you have. It's all tied to the knee bone's connected to the shin bone type of thing.
Right. It's so simple. It's like you said, it's so simple, but why can't we move forward? And that's really what my message is. When can we put a standardized system across the United States to let people know you're under a threat? At that big facility, people would have known, hey, we're under threat. It needs to be something to let people know, because it was just like people in this area knew, and then people in this area, and then it just created total chaos and pandemonium. We have to come
Yeah.
up with a system in the United States of America.
Well, I know a woman who could probably get that done. And I'm kind of looking at her right now. So,
I'm like you said, it's very much personal for me.
yep,
And I always tell everybody, hey, what if we could save one life? And
that's
what
all
if
it
that
is.
one life we save is your child
Yep.
or your cousin or
That's
your
what I mean by it's got to be taken personally. More things have to be taken personally. Put yourself in someone else's shoes, whatever phrase you want to use, but more personal. No, congrats. I think it's fantastic. I got one more question for you, because we always say in LA, you keep them wanting more so we can do a sequel. So, but with everything that's going on in the world, and we had the pandemic, and one of my clients told me in 2021, he said, 2020 was like the year that flew by slowly. And I thought, and right now, people, it feels like it was yesterday and years ago all at the same time. But with all that's happened, we're zooming through 2025. What are you most grateful for, and what are you most hopeful for?
Well, I'm most grateful for the fact that my family is healthy and safe. And I'm also very grateful for all the opportunities that have been presented with my mission, right? A lot of people have aligned with my mission. And I'm grateful that people have opened the door for me to be able to come in and speak about my mission and my passion, and also get other people. I'm just thankful about people that have been so supportive and signed my petition and did all these things to try to help move the needle forward, because without those people, you can't you can't do it all by yourself. You need
Right.
team, and you need support. And so I'm just grateful for all of the opportunities that have come. I'm grateful for my health. I'm grateful for so many things. But I think in the world overall, I'm grateful that, things are starting to, shift. I feel like there's a big movement. Like you said, women are becoming more of a voice in the world. And I feel like there's a bigger shift with women stepping in, and the men actually being open. My husband supports me so much, but I think having those men that support to open that door for us so that we can get in there and we can make a difference, I think that's something that I'm truly grateful and thankful for, because I see that in the future as, like you said, creating peace around the world. No mom wants to send their child to war. I don't care how old they are,
Yeah,
period.
I'm with you. What are you most hopeful for then?
I'm hopeful that people will understand what it is that I'm trying to do, and that they will actually, come in and try to help me find a solution to put a standardized system across the United States. We can start there, and we can start with our schools, because that's our heart running around outside of our body, our babies.
Yeah, well, I'm grateful that I have a new friend in Texas. Number one, and I think I'm grateful and hopeful that you are a leader who cares, and you're making an impact on the most precious commodity thing, whatever you want to call it, that we have, and that's our kids and their kids afterwards. So way to go on that, and we'll be looking to see the massive successes. And thanks for joining us on the Leaders Who Care series.
Thank you for having me. And yes, I consider you a friend, and I really appreciate you having this podcast and really acknowledging what people are doing around the world.
My privilege. Thanks.
Thank you for listening to the brand called You Videocast and Podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the brand called you.